Everybody ready to go? How's everybody doing? Good day? A good day? Well, let's clap for a good day, right? Well, listen, I just pretty emotional about this because I think this bill, the passage of this bill, the changing of this law is going to result in the saving of many, many lives, maybe in the thousands before all is said and done. I think, as we all know, this kind of reform legislation has sat idle for 25 years, maybe. Nobody wanted to touch it. It's the third rail. It's the hot problem. If you do this, you're going to get slammed. You're going to get hammered. You know what? When you're dealing with human beings, Harry Truman was right. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you're going to put your own future ahead of other people's lives and their ability to reclaim their lives, you're making a big mistake. Lynn Slaby deserves enormous credit. I remember seeing Lynn up in a joint event we were at before. I think it was before I even decided I was going to run for governor, and I know it was before he decided to run for state representative. And it's funny, you know, in The Hobbit it talks about the circle of life, and so Slaby runs for Congress a couple times. He loses by narrow margins. You never know where it's going to lead. He becomes a judge. He'd been a prosecutor. I say, Lynn, you've got to run for the House. You've just got to do this. He decides to run. He wins. And I can tell you that the fact that he has had that experience gave him great credibility to create teamwork in the state of Ohio and reduce the demagogue factor that could have existed out there. And some of it was legitimate fear about what was going to happen. But because he's a unique individual, he was able really to have such tremendous influence on having this happen. I also want to commend Tracy Hurd, and of course also Tim Grindell, Shirley Smith, Bill Seitz over in the Senate. A lot of people didn't think this could be done. I announced my support and my proposal in the State of the State. We put it in the budget. Thought it was important to be part of that document. It was moved separately in a way that we thought would make some sense. I think it's really great. Now, Gary Mohr, who is the head of corrections, his wife Linda's here today. This is not easy for Gary Mohr. I don't mean this bill, I mean this job. I mean, the man was working in the Corrections Corporation of America. He was making a nice living, and he had a nice, quiet life. And then he enters public service. And for those that think public service is such a great, fun, exciting, great time, walk in Gary's shoes for a while as he goes to meetings and people yell and scream at him. And I know there are times when his wife says, honey, I always trusted your judgment. What went wrong here? But when we think about the lives that are going to be reclaimed through all of his actions, there'll be a reward that he can get, and it might not necessarily be here, but he will get a reward. And let me tell you that, and Harvey Reid, by the way, I like to call him Harvey a street guy. He gets it. He understands exactly what goes on with our youth. He works very, very carefully with Gary. I love Gary. I love Harvey Reid. He's just such a gentle but firm man. You know, we have a couple people in the administration. They are meek, but they're not weak. And Harvey's one of them. He doesn't look for kudos or ribbons or awards or anything else. He just does his job and saving the lives of a lot of young people, giving them a chance at a decent future. I kind of look over here, I see Jim Petro, who said that back in the old days, he realized at the time that the laws that we had made were over the top. And he told me the other day in the cabinet meeting, told the cabinet that he regretted some of that he thought there was a better way to do things. But yet no one courage to move anything. And, you know, the great thing here is there are 12,000 people, I think is what Gary has told me. 46% of our yearly incoming population at the state prison who's in prison for less than a year. So we take somebody who's committed a non-violent offense or a lower-level drug offense, and we stick them in the prison next to a murderer and a rapist. That's really made a lot of sense here in Ohio, didn't it, to be doing that? Of course, this is what's been happening all over the country. And this bill begins to distinguish between those violent offenders and those few individuals who are maybe not redeemable, who will never maybe understand how it ever came to that. But Gary Mohr is an optimist. He says there are a number in our prisons who have separated from those who want to bring violence even inside the prison, that there's a chance of treatment, that there's a chance of restoring a life. And in the Lord's eyes, all lives are precious. And this is an effort to try to respond to what we think our duty is here as followers of the Word in the Old and the New Testament. Now, one of the things that we always get concerned about is, well, I mean, if you're going to treat these people in a community setting, are you now putting people who break the law next to my house? Well, Gary says they're already next to your house, and they're unsupervised, and they're uninformed. So what we're able to do with this bill, I got to tell you, it's just a magic week of what's being accomplished here. What goes on in this bill is that if you're in a community setting, you are being held in any variety of situations, whether it's home confinement, whether it's day reporting, and Gary will get into this. You will have treatment. You will have supervision. And we will no longer have unsupervised people in our neighborhoods who cause a threat to our families and to our mom and dad, and especially to our children. So there will be more money for treatment, more money for community activity. And yet, at the same time, in our prisons, an ability to segregate, to separate those who commit violence, want acts of violence, from those who, if given proper treatment and supervision, and given a chance to improve some of their basic skills, could come out of that prison and reduce recidivism. We're also, of course, in the process of combining public and private prison system. The private system competing right next to the public system, studying best practices. One of the reporters told me, or asked me a question not long ago. She said to me, well, what happens if we don't have anybody in the prison? What are we going to do then with all these prisons that we have? I didn't respond either. Because, of course, that would be our dream, but it's a dream that's not going to come true. And I don't want anybody to think that we've lost our discipline. You do bad, you break into somebody's house, you deal drugs, you commit violent acts, you commit domestic violence, we're locking you out. But if you're somebody that wants to get better, we're going to give you a chance. It's not just going to save money for the state of Ohio, but it's going to be able to apply that money in ways that we think can remediate, give people a chance. Not a Democrat issue, not a Republican issue, just a good issue about human beings. One further issue that we're going to have to tackle, and it's probably tougher than what we've even done today, and that's the issue of who holds that felony designation. African Americans have shared with me, one in particular, she shared with me a story of a man who worked in the Cleveland Clinic and had a spotless work record for 10 years and never checked the box the right way. He got found out and he lost his job. We don't want to shut people out who can be redeemed, and we're going to have to figure this out. It's got to be careful. The conservatives and the liberals have got to work together to separate stuff out. So we have more work to do. Let me also tell you that Gary Mohr is a remarkable individual. I believe that Gary Mohr will become a national figure on corrections reform. I talked to the former police chief of New York City, Bill Bratton, he then became the police chief of Los Angeles. He started his job up in Boston, discovered community corrections. I read his book. I had all the staff read it early on. He's just a brilliant guy. I called him up one day and I said, we don't know what to do about corrections. The population is exploding. We don't know what to do. Who's the best reformer in America? He said, well, we don't have anybody. No one knows what to do about corrections reform. It is the most unreformed area of anything that touches the government. We found a reformer. We found a reformer here. I don't know how we lucked out. He got, I've always said, 3 times. You can't ask somebody 3 times. I mean, I have to tell you, I only asked once. When I was younger. I'm not going to get into that. But the bottom line is, it was the 4th ask where Gary Mohr said, I will come and do this. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a very aggressive program to bring major change in the way in which we handle corrections. The possibility of, and again, I don't want to, a lot of people don't always understand me. I guess I am kind of a bleeding heart in a way, because I believe in the best for people. But we're not losing our discipline. And I'm not being dreamy-eyed. I'm not going to sit here and think everybody's going to be reformed and, kumbaya. But Gary is he is excited about what he's about to embark on, which is the next step of actually applying many of these things that he thinks about in terms of giving people a chance. We are so lucky to have him. He and I have a very special relationship. Because we have to tackle some of the most difficult things that human beings have to decide, which has brought us closer and closer. Glad to see Tom Charles here today. Tom, you're doing a great job of bringing a great morale back to that highway patrol. That's starting to happen. Professionalism. The patrol now beginning to become servants to the public, not ticket writers, not politicians, but servants to the public, which is what the great tradition of the patrol has been. So, great corrections team. Harvey Reid for a second. And Martha Spone, I mean, this is a great story. Fewer people, fewer kids in our institutions, more in community settings. And what we know is that if we can successfully apply the community treatment, we have much better outcomes than when we lock people up and throw away the key. And that's what we're all searching for and hoping for.